Our next speaker has spent the last 15 years guiding groups around the world to collaborate in powerful, transformative ways. Tai Barosso is a specialist in participatory processes, blending methodologies, ancestral wisdom, and contemporary design to help communities move from simple participation to true ownership. Through her work, she's partnered with organizations across Europe, West Africa, and South America, spanning civil society, foundations, cooperation agencies, and global companies. In this session, Ty will share how she weaves radical collaboration and collective intelligence into a practice of belonging and power redistribution. She'll show us how communities can move beyond toolkits to real transformation where method meets magic. Please join me in welcoming Tai Barosso.
Thank you. I'm good. I'm here in Rio de Janeiro. It's 6 p.m. So good night for whoever is close tonight. Good morning to the ones who are already on my tomorrow, to the ones who are in the future. Thank you very much for the presentation, Beth. It's always good to hear people talking about me. I was the one who wrote that, but it's good to hear. Let me start sharing my screen. Well, I'm not gonna go get. I just want. I see we have 223 people in this. Can you guys send a hello on the chat so I know that you're actually here and I'm not it's not all AI. So just give me a hello, send me emojis. You can do that throughout the whole presentation. Please do. Actually, please do, so it doesn't feel like I'm just talking to the screen. I learned earlier that with Beth that the in-person events are coming back. Maybe someday we're going to have an in-person loop. So without talking any further, let's start. I would like to start saying thank you. No, it's not the last slide. I always thank people. It's the first thing I think we should do when we gather a bunch of people. I'm very excited. Thank you for the invitation for this global takeover. I love takeovers. It's a thing. Thank you for the time. Thank you for watching me. And well, that said a lot, but I think there's two things you guys should know about me. The other stuff you guys can check on LinkedIn. There's a QR code here that you can see, and you can get a bunch of links there on my QR code, but you guys can also find me on LinkedIn, and you're going to learn a lot about me. So the two things is, the first one is just like my friend Ronaldinho, the wizard or the magician of soccer or football, depending where you are in the world. Me too, I was in the Brazilian national team. I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to think, wow. Yeah, it doesn't look like that. It wasn't on soccer though. It was on field hockey. And yes, it's played on the field. No, it doesn't include any horsey. So that's one thing you should know. Second thing you should know is that my clients pay me to put them to work. And honestly, I think that's magic. I love it. I love how I'm paid to put people to work and gather. I mean, it is magic. You cannot say it's not. Actually, the third information is that you should know that I have this deepest belief that of these people's ability to think and act collectively. It's like a sacred principle to me. At Awele, we call it radical collaboration, which could be a method, but I think it's a little bit beyond that. So what is this pillar of our work when we call it radical collaboration? In a nutshell, it would be, we stretch a little bit of the tools we already use to collaborate and make it radical. Now, when we're making radical, we're looking at radical like the radical sports that we all like, but we are also looking at radical, the origin of the world, which is root. At our root, we are in the interdependent. We need to collaborate. We need to actually work together. At the root of ourselves, we can design things. There's the one saying that if Muhammad If the mountain doesn't go to the Muhammad, then Muhammad goes to the mountain. Well, I have seen it with my bare eyes. The groups gathering and lifting up a mountain and taking it to Muhammad. I'll tell you, I've seen it. We are radical by design, which means that all of our experiences are actually radical in these two senses, the world. And the way we do it is we immerse teams. We invite decision makers to be there and to make decisions throughout the process. And it's not as simple as it looks like. Sometimes when companies and organizations hire a consultancy firm, they expect them to do everything. And then sometimes they just take the projects and are like, oh, these people, they gathered, they did some stuff, this is too cute. Yeah, but we're not going to do anything about it. So we do have a care, and that's what we mean that we're talking about collective commitment here. We invite the decision makers to make this collective commitment in the spot with our sessions. So we have a variety of amazing stories. I could actually speak for more than 20 minutes, which is what I plan to speak here. I'm the biggest fan of our clients and the projects we co-create. One important thing also that you should know is that at Awele, we have a saying that it's one size does not fit all. I'm a big girl. I've suffered with one sizes for my whole life, with clothes and everything. So I decided I wanted to do projects and programs which are actually bespoke. They are tailored to our clients' needs. So I wanted to share with you three stories that I choose for today, and I actually choose today. I just did that, of magical encounters, of magical meetings where we used radical collaboration on the design and on the facilitation of the meetings, right? So as I said earlier, I learned that the in-person meetings are back. So I'm happy about that. So I have here two in-person projects, and one was hybrid. I will speak with you more a little bit about it. The first one, there's actually a video here. I need to introduce you a little bit of the organization it is. So SENAC is our National Service for Commercial Learning here in Brazil. It's an organization with more than 70 years of history. It's dedicated to professional education with a strong presence across the entire country. It offers mainly courses and training in fields such as commerce, technology, design, hospitality, tourism. In this case, we were at a fashion school, which is a fashion graduate and a bunch of open courses. But what they do is they focus on preparing people to real demands on the job market. It's an old 70 plus organization, extremely organized with the respect of the poetry here, and they have literature for everything. So it means that there's a manual for everything. There's a saying that I learned with them. Is like, if you want to fart inside of one of their units, probably you're going to find a manual to do that. Someone explaining to you how you do it. First you do this, then you do that. So when they contacted me, the problem that they were having is, why do people don't understand our processes? We have so many ways of explaining it. We have so many forms of talking about it. Like, why are these people not getting it? And the thing is, it's important to say that, literature, whatever is written down, it has its own interpretation. So even though people could be 5, 10 years in the organization, maybe they would change their interpretation of the manuals. So maybe farting is not the same way that they did before. So it's important to say that in this context. This picture is the last session where they actually applied the decisions we made through the process. Just an overview of this process. What we did is we did 4 in-person meetings. We divided the group, which was around 80 people, between teachers, administrative, and coordination staff. So it was 80 people, and we divided them into Team A and Team B. So Team A started the process. They made decisions. At the end of the day, they gather information to send this information, to pass it over to Team B. And on the next week, team B would take this information and work from there. So they would do that, and then team A would come again. So the sessions would not be the same, and you couldn't be on team A or team B. So people would have to, they're going to have to live with a situation where you don't know exactly what happened in the session. You're just going to take something that someone already started. You're going to trust their decisions. You're going to trust the process, and you're going to go through it up forward, because that's how work it is. That's how work works, right? That's what we do in our life. Sometimes we have to take the process, trust the process, and go with the process. Now, this picture was the last session, so that means that team B was executing everything that team A decided on the last session. And at the middle, there was a lot of people. We don't have a picture of the whole setting, but at the middle of everything, there was these two benches where people could sit and they could just relax and breathe and get ready for the intensity. So while everyone was working, you could just sit there and take a breath. So what we learn here, which path is this? We make complex simple, and then we make complex again, because everyone knows absolutely nothing is simple, especially if it involves people. We're diverse, thank God. We're very diverse. We have different repertoires. We do a bunch of different stuff. We make decisions differently. So, what we did in this journey to make the magic happen was to divide the group. Instead of talking about how difficult it was to understand the process, we guided them through a process itself. They went and they dove deeply in the complex systems themselves. It was beautiful. Second project, one thing that you should know, I've facilitated many things in life, but the creative part of facilitating the manifest for a shaman church was one of my greatest stories. They call themselves spiritual artists, and the name of the project is rehearsal, because, well, it has to do with the spiritual artists. And throughout 3 online sessions, we dove deep into their cultures, what they like, how they do, what they need to organize their ceremonies, everything that works with it. So we produced a series of information throughout these meetings, and then at the end of the meeting, they were chosen to actually choose what they would do, and they did a manifest. Now here, what we're talking about, language. We have to adapt. We have to format. We have to make it visceral. People have to feel things. When we talk about language, I'm not talking about English, Spanish, Portuguese, not that kind of language. There are many languages that are not spoken, and on this case, we created a manifest where people actually manifested it with movement, with body, with music, with words, with everything that them as artists would manifest. So who am I to come to this group and tell them, hey, no, you're not gonna do a manifest. You're an artist, but let's take some post-its and do a manifest. That had nothing to do with them. They didn't want to look at post-its. They wanted to scream. They wanted to dance. They wanted to do a bunch of things. And being a good facilitator and having the proper tools in the sense is extremely important, because you have to know how to guide the group in a way that they will engage with the information that you're bringing. So language, not only the words, language, body language, visual languages, everything that you can come up with language. Third project, let me sip of water. I'm kind of losing my voice. The third project is one of my favorites too. This one was created together with Hahatai. It's an NGO in the north of Senegal, so in the Gandial, which is a village. I'm sorry. And I had a challenge. I was asked to do a very easy challenge. They asked me to create the methodology for their community communication laboratory. The first challenge was I had 60 people to work with. These people were from 14 years old to 62 years old. Some of them didn't even write, couldn't even write or speak. They couldn't write or read. I'm sorry. And well, that was the first challenge, right? So we have a different variety here of people. Some of them were finishing their PhDs. And maybe the biggest problem of them all is that I did not speak French, neither Wolof, which was the local language. So how am I supposed to do a community communication methodology if I don't speak the language myself? Here's I come back to our second lesson, which is language, right? When we talk about community communication, when we're talking about communication, we have to understand there are many different ways of communicating things. So, and what is something that everyone in every culture communicates with? Games. And when we look at games, it reminds us of our childhood, but it also connects us through different feelings, actually understand the process, which is from getting from A to B, from B to C. And as a game, it has stages. As a game, it has characters. As a game, it has a goal. The goal here was to create a community communication campaign. Uh, how did we make everyone work together? ComCom, which is from Comunicación Communautaire, community communication, but also ComCom means richness in Wolof. And what we did was take some hard tools from different methodologies, from different areas of the world. We took these hard tools and we were able to redesign them and adapt them to local realities. And then we took actually local realities and local tools for us to design this game. Through 3 months, the groups would access, discuss, design, and delivery a community communication campaign that made sense for the territories. And 2 years later, three cohorts after, we actually were able to print the game, which we are the co-author here. But I was the one who made it. So what we learned here, resources. And then when I say eat local, it's because we have a thing here in Brazil. Maybe you guys are not in countries where you have that. But, there's a moment of the year we have a lot of cashew. Like, for example, right now. So we eat a lot of cashew. You have cashew juice everywhere. You have cashew candy. There's a bunch of stuff. So when we talk about eating local, what are the local resources that we have? What is actually abundant at that moment, in place, in time, for us to actually for us to actually harvest from? That's very important. So the magic here is actually make people connect with the story that you're trying to tell, or that you're trying to make them tell it together. And that's what we did with this project. ComCom is like, it has a special place in my heart, and will forever have. Let not my other clients hear that one. Important what we did here. So I talked about resources, I talked about a bunch of stuff, language, a bunch of stuff. But what we have here, what is the common, and where is the magic of this, where this radical collaboration is happening? And I just have one word to tell you. It's audacity. Now there's a whole special section for me to talk about audacity, and I'll let you guys, I guess Q&A might be open. I'll let you guys make questions, because I'm getting to the end of my presentation. But when we talk about audacity, we're talking about, the audacity that people that practice radical sports, the audacity of, doing amazing stuff, the audacity of someone hiring me to make them work, to put them to work, the audacity of looking at people as resourceful. People are amazing, and when you gather them, they come up with amazing stuff. I've seen it with my bare eyes. Honestly, it's crazy what you can do when you gather people with the proper tools and with the proper decision makers. And when you have leaders that actually want to engage their teams. I spoke a lot about awele. Awele is an Igbo word. Today my English is failing. Um, awele means good journey in Igbo. And what we do is we facilitate them. We make them easier. We facilitate and design great journeys, one for each client, um, one for me, and one for our collaborators. When we talk about good journey, it has to be good with everyone, and I think that's also a point of magic here. It has to be good for everyone. Everyone should be able to celebrate these good journeys, and it has to be good for the people who are uh, guiding it, for the people who are on it, for the people who have passed through it. It's extremely important that we have good journeys in our communities, in our projects, in our companies, in our organizations. With that being said, once again, thank you very much. And I'll let you make some questions for, let me stop sharing so I can see. Oh, better.
I'm here. Thank you so much, Ty. That was fantastic. I mean, I love a little bit of storytelling. I love a little bit of that, like how we're doing it in our neck of the woods and like on the other side of the world. So thank you very much for sharing. If you do have questions for Ty, pop them in the Q&A tab. I, of course, am sitting here riveted, and I have lots of questions and thoughts that I would love to hear your opinions on. So the first thing that I think is really interesting, what is a small habit that has really helped you like keep the collaboration rooted in belonging instead of just efficiency? Because I think sometimes we have to walk a balance or like a tightrope between belonging in community and being efficient, being business minded. So I'd love to hear kind of what you do to help that balance.
I think there's two things I can say. Well, first off, I'm gonna say hello to my Brazilian friends who are here speaking in Portuguese in your chat. That's so Brazilian. Olá, olá, todo mundo. Boa noite. So, we have a set of things we do, and we have to understand with the different organizations that we work with if the organizations are open or not to accept our standards of things. We have an approach. We're not just a consultancy that would do whatever the client needs. For example, like we do have an approach. It's like a political view of how a process should work for us. So with our approach, one of the things that we think it's fundamental is that the decision makers are in the room, and they're not only in the room watching, they have to be in the room making decisions. And that this is very important for the whole process. People are going to give ideas. They're going to be the ones, they're going to be in vulnerability. And I'm a lucky one because normally the people who hire me are the directors, are the coordinators, are the decision makers. So they understand my approach. They come to the room with me and they tell their team, we are going to do this together. And it's amazing to see. It's amazing to see. They're like, no, we will. Let's do it. And the person sitting there, it's working, it's discussing. It's not only bringing, the bad vibes of like, we can't do this. At some point, we have to do that, especially when you do strategic planning. But it's important for them to be there and be there, not answering emails, being there, like it's the thing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, I mean, well, it also is helpful to when someone comes into the room with the answers to your questions. I mean, what you're saying is like you come in and you're like, this is what we're going to do. And they're like, yes, we're going to do this. Because I think sometimes we can get stuck in the how. We know what we want to do, we know why we want to do it, but it's like, how do I implement this? So I think that as soon as you get that injection of someone being like, here, this is how you do it, then that's when the inspiration and the motivation truly strikes.
I this weekend I was with some clients, and they're like, at some point of our process, we're like, this is not going to work. We're going to get nowhere. And this is the importance of trusting the process. Not everyone knows how to guide the process properly. Like not everyone knows how to be a proper tour guide, for example. So it's understanding the process, getting to know different methodologies, mixing and matching them well. It's like cooking, Beth. It's like,
Mm.
how can you, that's why I talk so much about the alchemy of things. You have to cook. Sometimes you put a lot of sauce, sometimes you put a little bit, but at the end of the day, you have to cook, and it has to be at everyone's good taste. At the end of the day, you have to be able to, it has to be good for everyone. And there are ways to do that. There are amazing ways to do that.
Yeah, and I like this analogy because then you also have to adapt. I mean, I've, like, literally watched someone, dump too much salt into the pot because the top came off or whatever it was. So then it's like, okay, how do we fix this when something has gone wrong? It's a great metaphor. Cooking is a great metaphor for this.
Oh, I have many. I have many metaphors for everything. I think it's like a little bit of a craft. You're sewing things, and sometimes you're gonna get knots in the middle of the process. But I think when we talk about community and belonging and understanding who we are, what we do, you have to give thread to it so that you can
Mm,
actually do stuff together. Many organizations don't understand this. They don't give thread to people. They don't give cords. They don't give
yeah.
stuff for them to work with, and then they get stuck forever.
Absolutely. It's like we need the resources. Okay, so then when talking about moving into that, like from participation to ownership, I mean, where do you see people struggle with that, like the mindset shift from participation to ownership? And do you have advice for those folks who are like, how do I kind of like get over that hump?
I think there's two parts of the things. There's the leaders, the decision makers, the one who are at the top, the C levels, and all. They don't like to be vulnerable, and you're very vulnerable when someone asks you, so why are we firing the intern? Like, what happened? And there are not many opportunities for them for that to happen because they're protected. They protect themselves. Of course, it is a difficult thing. So one important thing is leaders have to understand that they gotta put down their guards, that they're human too. They might make mistakes. They have to learn how to say, I'm sorry. They have to learn to say, I made a mistake. And then on the other side, people who are, we're not educated to be collaborative. We're not educated to be participative. Our educational system teaches us that we have to raise a hand and ask to go to the bathroom. You know how bizarre it is when you come to think of it. Like, it's something that you have to do. Why do you have to ask permission for that? Your body's not asking permission for you to, go to the toilet. So why do we have? So we have to learn or teach ourselves how to learn that again. So we have to take ownership of things slowly, but conscious that we're not educated, and it's okay. Like, we all went through that. So how can me, as someone who's not in the leadership position, how can I participate and test more my audacity in this process? How can I, let me see if I can go and let me see what I can do here, what I cannot. What if I lead this project? Let me test, let me have audacity. And I think that's the word for it.
That's great. It's a great word as well. I think that it's sometimes used negatively, like, how do you have the audacity to think you can do that? But truly, like, you should believe that you have the audacity to do stuff, and then maybe it'll just become true.
Exactly.
Fake it till
as
you
as
make it.
Rihanna would say, you fake it.
That's right, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Ty. It's been a true pleasure to have you on our stage. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. Good night.